We got 4.
There's a chance I may have to leave.
Well, the meeting should be started.
Very small chance today. If I get up and leave, it's shot collection.
We're on travel. How are you?
Good, how are you? Nice to see you.
Ready? There's no gavel, so it is December 2nd, 12:33 p.m. I declare this meeting of the Midland Independent School District Board of Trustees open for business or any other transactions that may be properly presented. So we have a quorum. Verification and compliance with open meetings law. This is certified provisions of section 551.001 of the Texas Government Code have been met in connection with public notice of this meeting. Item number 3 will be public forum. Do we have anybody speaking at public forum? Do we know? Okay, and then we'll move right into item number 4, consent agenda. Consent agenda today consists of 4A, approval of board meeting minutes, 4B, approval of monthly financials, 4C, approval of donations over $20,000, 4D, approval of budget amendment number 4, consent agenda 4E, approval of the tax roll certification, 4F, approval of RFP number 24-88, instructional software for special education, 4G, approval of RFP number 24109, Marquee signs installation, repair, and related services. 4H, approval of RFQ number 24 through 26, owner control insurance program. 4I, approval of selection of vendors for bond-related landscape services. 4J, approval of the architectural engineering firm for the Able and San Jacinto Middle School project associated with the 2023 bond and authorization to execute an agreement therewith. 4K, approval of the Midland Central Appraisal District Board of Directors ballot. 4L, adoption of board resolution concerning the ratification of sales agreement for certain real property. 4M, approval of board goal update, goal progress measure 1.3 related to K through 2nd M class reading. Does anybody have any items that they would like to discuss or have pulled from this agenda?
I have some items I would like to both pull and discuss,
So,
or discuss.
representative from District 5, we need a motion to have those pulled.
I move to pull items D, F, G, and M, and I would like, do I need to tell us? That's just the ones I have to pull, so I have the other ones I'd like to discuss.
And he's from District 4.
Or District 4, sorry, I'm District 5. Anybody else have anything? So we have a motion on 4 consent agenda to divide the question. So we'll take out 4D, approval of budget amendment number 4. Budget amendment, or consent agenda 4F, approval of RFP number 24 through 88, instructional software for special education. 4G, approval of RFP number 24 through 109, Marquee signs, installation, repair, and related services. And 4M, approval of board goal update, goal progress measure 1.3 related to K through 2 M class reading. We need a second for that. Do I have a second for that?
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that we pull or divide the question for consent agenda 4D, F, G, and M. All those in favor, raise their right hand. All those against, raise your right hand. Ms. Burleson, are you abstaining from voting? Ms. Burleson abstains. Okay, so now we move to discuss, or we want to go ahead and vote on consent agenda A, B, C, E, H, I, J, K, L.
I would like to discuss for clarification.
On all the items then?
On E and H.
Do we vote, Chad, on that, or do we just pass on the others? Consent.
So Chad is not an elected member, nor is he the parliamentarian for the school board. It is up to the chairman to determine that, and so we did not, we did not put that in that original motion. So we would just be able to pull these items right now, and so we'll discuss D, F, G, and M, and then you can come back and motion for discussion on the other ones after this one is done. So anyhow, if you want to start with the D, the consent agenda 4D, approval of budget amendment number 4.
So my question is.
Hold on.
Sorry.
Let's, Tucker, you have the floor.
So, consent item 4D is the approval of the budget amendment number 4. So the board is responsible for approving and adopting 3 budgets: the general fund, child nutrition fund, and the debt service fund. And then they also are required to approve it on a functional level. And so the functional level really categorizes what the expenditures are for, whether it's for instructional, whether it's for transportation, so on and so forth. And so action item 4D is going to have cross-functional transfers. There were already funds budgeted in specific functions. However, the respective budget owners requested to move the budget from one function to another function in order to best meet their campus and department needs. That is going to be for the general fund, for the child nutrition fund, TDA, which is the Texas Department of Agriculture, allows school districts to have up to 6 months of operating expenditures in fund balance. This is a federal program. They actually just increased it from 3 months of operating expenditures to that 6 months because they understand that the cost of inflation is there, and so they wanted to give that little leeway to school districts. But what this is requesting is for the purchase of equipment and furniture that is needed in the child nutrition department in order to address the needs that have not been met in previous years. Also, one thing that I would like to mention, there's not a budget amendment for debt service fund. However, if you do look, you'll see that there's a quote-unquote deficit of roughly $71.8 million. This is because the board approved to the fees roughly $106 million in August of this year. And we had sufficient funds at the end of our 6/30 calendar year in order to make those defeasance. And so I just wanted to provide some clarity there just in case you do have questions whenever looking at that.
Any questions?
I have some questions. So this 6.1 million, are there any other options? Or does it have to go to furniture for cafeterias, or how's this,
It's-
what are our options?
It's furniture and equipment, and so TDA, the Child Nutrition Department, is probably one of the stricter of the federal programs that the district operates in. And so we've actually already submitted our plan to TDA in order for them to approve it prior to coming before the board to ask for approval of that.
So this is just to allocate it, it's not necessarily to spend it?
No, sir, this 6.1 is going to be to expend these funds. However, we have more than sufficient fund balance in our 240 child nutrition. And as I mentioned, we're only allowed to actually have 6 months of operating expenditures and fund balance. And so let's say, for instance, we have 9 months of operating expenditures and fund balance. TDA can come in and possibly negatively impact our school district because we're not utilizing those funds to address the needs within the program.
Tucker, I just said
Yes, sir.
to the District 4 reps, questions. Would you explain that with the nutrition, the child nutrition, that the federal dollars that come in through the USDA, kind of just a general quick breakdown of the different buckets that they come in from?
Yes, sir. So long story short, there's kind of 3 different buckets that the USDA actually looks at. They look at the free, and then they look at the reduced rates. And so, for instance, let's say a student is economically disadvantaged and qualifies for that free lunch, then the feds will actually subsidize the school districts for a specific allotment for whether it's breakfast or lunch. They also have some additional programs for after school, so on and so forth. The reduced is going to be a reduced rate, so some of the students do qualify for a reduced cost, but not necessarily a fully free. And so they have a reimbursement rate of up to a certain dollar amount, and only those fluctuate from year to year. And then the third category that USDA looks at is the not free or reduced. And so students are required to pay 100% of that cost. They also establish a rate to be at on an annual basis.
Anything further?
Nope.
Anybody?
That clears it up. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. So my question for the board would be, do we want to just go through these individually and have them discussed and then vote on them as a group, or pull the ones that we want to? Does anyone have any concerns with that, or can we continue to put that one, just leave it in the total consent to vote at it as a bucket?
I think we just discuss them.
I think that you should vote on them separately, those 4. The others should have been voted on in the beginning,
Okay, it's
because we passed on.
I like that. I think we should vote on them.
D, F, G, and M. Okay, so we need a motion, because that was not in the original motion. So I need a motion. Okay, seconded. So it has been motioned and seconded that the consent agenda 4, D, F, G, and M be pulled and voted on separately after discussion. All those in favor, raise their right hand. It's unanimous. Okay, all those in favor of approving, well, let's discuss them all and then go through and vote on them, or do you want to vote on them individually?
Might be better individually.
Just right now?
I think so.
Mr. Harrison wanted to do it.
Is that, so do you want to do D now that it's done? Okay, so all those in favor of consent agenda 4D, raise your right hand. It's unanimous. Motion approves. And so consent agenda 4F, moving on to it, approval of RFP number 24-88, instructional software for special education. Will be up for discussion and vote now.
Good afternoon. So consent item, 4F pertains to special education software. One of the software is used for the special education testing, where we collect the data the diagnosticians use to house all of that information. And the second software is houses all of the odd paperwork. So all of the paperwork that goes out to parents, and also the updates for after when you're finished conducting the assessment, you have to house it in the other software. So this is just all of the paperwork from giving parents notice from the very beginning of an ARD to the very end of the ARD.
Any questions?
I have some questions. So on this RFP, I just wondered how we get these scores. Are these arbitrary scores that we're assigning, or how are we grading these things?
Tucker, do you want to speak to that, how we go through that process?
So, I do not have that pulled up right in front of me. Most of the RFPs are going to be different, based off what their services are or the products that, the district is actually going to be purchasing. And so also, I just wanted to clarify that the district is required to competitively procure any goods, services, or supplies, if it meets a $50,000 threshold or above. And so the district has the ability to utilize purchasing cooperatives that the district is members of. However, that is not always the best price. And so I just wanted to lead in with that. However, based off the services, we'll go through and actually put different scoring matrices in place, whether it's a local vendor sometimes, whether the district has also utilized that vendor in previous years, whether some of our school districts of like size utilize those, kind of the services that they provide, so on and so forth.
So do we call around and see, like all these different vendors, are we getting opinions on how they're working other places?
Yes, sir. And so what we do, whenever we do issue out an RFP, is we request, I apologize, I just went blank. We request references.
Right.
And so what we'll do is once the company provides those references and their contact information, then our system actually sends them an email so that they can fill that out. Now, I don't necessarily say that 100% of them fill out the references. However, the majority of them do find their references. And thankfully, a lot of times school districts are pretty close-knit. And so if we do have questions, concerns, then we'll reach out to a like districts that's utilizing them and ask them their professional opinion.
So do we have who assigns these scores? Are teachers involved in assigning these scores, or?
Honestly, it kind of just depends on what the purchase is for. I don't know off the top of my head exactly what the committee was made up of for the special education services. However, they're made up of multiple individuals. The purchasing department is going to be one of those components to that bid procurement, just to ensure that we meet compliance.
All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
I do want to clarify that these softwares are not new. The only reason they're on here is because of a budget transfer. So we've been using both of these softwares for the past few years.
Any more questions?
I move we accept it.
It has been moved.
Second.
All those in favor, it's been moved and seconded to discuss and vote for consent agenda 4F. All those in favor, raise your right hand. It's unanimous, the motion passes. On to item number, consent agenda 4G, approval of RFP number 24 through 109, Marquee signs, installation, repair, and related services.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Hodges. This is actually asking for approval of an RFP for installation and repair of Marquee signs. We have currently six campuses. We're going to install Marquee in, electronic Marquee at their campus this year. This is a part of our replacement cycle for those signs. We have 18 campuses now that have an electronic Marquee. Some of those are obsolete and not working, so and some simply don't have them. So in order to get all of our campuses up to our standard on having said marquees, this is a part of that process.
Any questions?
So again, I just have a question on how we assimilate this RFP and the scores and what's your thought process behind all these arbitrary, I mean, they seem like arbitrary numbers, but we assign all these different values and I just wonder how we get to these.
And again, I don't, like Tucker said, I don't have the score sheet here in front of me. I know that 850, I believe, invitations were issued for that RFP. We had 3 vendors submit proposals, and ultimately ended up with Lone Star Signs as the recommendation. Our previous marquees that we've installed in the district were also done by Lone Star Signs. So to keep that uniformity within the district, we did rank them the highest. I believe the number 2 ranked proposal, which was Mega Electronics, if you have it pulled up, I apologize if you don't have it.
Yeah, it is there.
They did not meet our specs. They didn't include the Daktronics language in their specs, so that's why they came in the close second. And we used to use Lone Star off of what Tucker mentioned earlier, a cooperative contract, but their Bible contract expired, so we had to go out for an RFP.
And then also you tend to get better prices with an RFP. Typically.
Yes, ma'am.
So in the negotiation process, do we go back and forth with them or how does this work? Or do we just accept their offer or?
We accept their bid of what they came in at, yes, sir.
All right.
So I have a couple questions on, what's our current deficit budget for MISD
42,
overall?
41 and a half, 41.
And I realize that this was a capital project cost that was approved by a prior board. And I was on that prior board, I don't think I approved it, but that's neither here nor there. But, so what is the cost per unit of these signs?
Average is about, depending on the electrical work and the demo of an old sign, et cetera, around 60,000 per sign, 65,000 per sign. So for those 6 campuses, it'd be 390,000 for this fiscal year.
If we did not approve this today, these signs, what would be the negative impact on student outcomes?
I can't answer that question. I know that they're very popular amongst our campuses during drop-off and pickup. Parents, get notifications on when testing days are, what early release days are. I mean, there's all different kinds of notifications that principals and campus administration post on those for parents. We've received a lot of positive feedback from our community on, the campuses that have them versus the campuses that don't have them. And the need and the want is there for those campuses that don't have them, both from the campus administration and the community members that we've got feedback from.
So I guess my better question would be, if we postpone this to save our finite financial resources to justify something that has more of a direct impact in the classroom or on the campus, not aesthetically, would this do detrimental harm to the district moving forward? Or is this something that we could put off for now and come back and look at it at another time after we go through some budgetary meetings and processes?
That we certainly can. Again, that's up to the board to.
But it would not, for you, it would, if we voted this down, it's not gonna cause any detrimental effect that cannot be overcome, correct?
Again, I mean, I don't think so.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
I have a comment. There is a lot of usage of the signs at the elementary campuses for sure, and in the middle school campuses where the kids don't communicate with their parents as much about what's going on at the school. And to me, that feeds into student outcomes as well.
Thank you. Anything else? Anybody else? Everybody good? It has been motioned and seconded that we pull and discuss and vote on consent agenda item 4G. All those in favor of passing this, raise your right hand. District 6 votes for and District 1 votes for. All those against, raise your right hand. The motion fails. Moving on to consent agenda 4M for discussion and voting on the approval of board goal update, goal progress measure 1.3 related to K through 2nd M-class reading. Anybody have any questions? She puts on a good presentation, folks.
Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions? She always has good news too.
I have a question. How did we pick 70% by 2028?
So that was established whenever new board goals were approved by the school board last school year. So we know that we want to be better than that 70%, but whenever we're looking at doing a goal for about 5 years, we know that it's going to take time to get to that. So whenever it's time to look at these goals again, these goal progress measures, we would be looking to increase that in the future, but we know we've got to go slowly to go fast.
And I think it's important too, these are goal progress measures.
Correct.
To point out, we have 5 board goals, you have 5 board goals. And then these are goal progress measures, so what I call leading indicators, you know, if we're gonna get to that goal in 2028, what do these GPMs have to do, you know, each year in order for us to get there? So these are goal progress measures, which is that data we look at throughout the year versus the board goals are gonna be data that happens, you know, at the end of those 5 years, if that helps too.
Does this include all students with special needs through?
This does, so what we actually do is we look at the data for English tested students and for Spanish tested students and then average those together, but it does include all students who are in special ed as well, unless their IEP notes that they would not participate in district assessments. And we see that sometimes with our students in medically fragile classrooms or life skills classrooms, that testing is not appropriate for them.
What
Well, you get to go next because I already asked for it.
I'm sorry. So what percentage would you, I guess we don't have that number, are special ed or excluded from testing?
I do not have that percentage with me to let you know how many students were not tested.
I have another question, more of a comment question, but those involved in education know that K through 2nd grade, a lot of times we're also finding that we find dyslexia during that time that we don't know about early on in kindergarten, but we might find in 1st grade and might not even discover until 2nd grade. Is that correct?
That's correct, and this assessment is actually also used as a dyslexia screening. And so then we use this data to determine what students need to be tested further for dyslexia services. And that data is also recorded to the state.
And this is beginning of year data.
That's correct, and we will report again in March. for
So-
middle of the year.
So do you know the percentage of special ed and or dyslexia or?
As far as the percentage on, like how they scored,
Well, just how many, what's our percentage special ed that would be taking this, of this 100% that scored, what percent is special ed?
I don't have that with me, but I can run that.
Okay, I would, I mean, after the meeting, I would like those numbers, I think that's very important data to determine our goals.
So with that, I'll just make a comment on this. When we have our team of 8 that's coming up or whatever, or training, we can go over those and we can modify these at that time and come in and change them and vote on them if the board sees it fit or what have you. But it's this, I think, to try and not approve these or change them right now, it moves the goalposts on them pretty good. You will hear about, like, they do not like having goalposts moved.
Understood. Thank you.
It has been moved and seconded to pull, discuss, and vote on consent agenda 4M. All those in favor of accepting it, raise your right hand. It is unanimous, the motion passes. Moving on to the consent agenda 4A, B, C, E, H, I, J, K, and L. All those in favor? We need a motion to vote on those as a block.
I would like to discuss.
But we have to have this vote and then you have to have a motion on.
So I move that we vote on the ones A, B, C, E, H, I, J, K, L.
Okay, so is there a second?
To vote to, but he wants to discuss it.
I understand, so we vote this down, like if the board, if they want, they vote it down and then we start over again.
We don't get to discuss.
Yes, but we have to vote that it's been motioned, or you know what, it can die, no one said. There is no second. So if you would like to discuss the ones that you have Which items are those?
E and H.
E and H. Can we have a motion?
I'll move to discuss.
We'll get a second.
Second.
Okay, it has been motioned and seconded that we pull consent agenda 4E and H for discussion and voting on separately. All those that approve, raise your right hand.
What do we, to pull those?
Yes, so that can be discussed.
Pull again.
Okay, so all those against, raise your right hand.
I'm gonna say I'm against just because they should have been pulled in the beginning and we pulled.
Noted. Okay. So we're now gonna discuss the consent agenda 4E. Anyone have any questions? Or do you wanna present first, or anyone have any questions?
I'll go ahead and present and hopefully I can address whatever questions there might have been. So if you look at the tax road certification, there at the bottom right-hand corner, you'll see $421.2 million. That's the tax levy as of the time that the CAD sent this information over to me. And the taxable adjusted value is roughly $48 billion. With that, there's also $3 billion left that is still under protest. And that is the reasoning why that number and my cover sheet is slightly different. Right now, I'm anticipating roughly $49.5 billion to be our taxable value for tax year 2024, which is going to fund the 24-25 school year. However, that number is kind of forever fluctuating based on protests being finalized by the ARP board.
Any more questions?
I have some questions just on some of these line item deductions and what they are exactly. So I got like 6 of them, I just would like clarification. So the first one, what is local option?
The local optional homestead exemption.
It just says local option, there's homestead, frozen homestead, local option, I don't know what local option is.
I would, Tucker, may I just put this in your head, because this might be it, because I don't know, because it's not, but it could be the local option for the additional discount that's available that MISD had adopted to Midland County property owners a while back. I think it's maxed out at 10,000 or something, I can't remember.
Okay.
Right, because we're one of the few districts that give that local option above the required.
Yes.
Well, and the district actually provides, it's a 10% local homestead.
Right, that's what I think it could be.
Yes, sir, and I believe so as well. Sometimes the
So it's a
the verbiages are not 100%.
Yeah, when you pull it up on MCAT, you'll see like the breakdowns on it, like when you go through the report, and there are all these exemptions and discounts, the addendum sheet, and it'll show that one specific. I can't remember what the min and the max is, but it's on MCAT. I think that is what that is too.
I believe
So,
so.
and it makes, because it's right under the
Homestead.
homestead.
Yeah, so the frozen local option would also be a homestead. Anyone else have a question? Several other ones.
Anybody else?
So circuit breaker, what is that?
So the circuit breaker, it was adopted during the 88th legislative session that it would not allow for more than a 20% valuation change. And so let's say, for instance, the easiest one to kind of correlate that to would be the oil and gas industry. And so you see your highs, you see your lows. And so let's say, for instance, 1 year the value increases by 15%. The district gets to tax on all 15% of that additional increase. However, let's say the next year it falls by 20%. So then that value goes back down. Well, that following year, let's say it goes back up 30%. Well, the district cannot take that entire 30% because of that circuit breaker. And so we can only take that 20%. And so, like I said, that is new legislation that the 88th legislature passed in one of the special sessions. I think it might have been in the third special session.
Any other questions?
Anybody else? It has been moved and
He
seconded.
I still got more questions.
Well, you don't have, keep
I don't
going with
have-
yours then
all right.
until you're done.
How about the prorated other adjustment?
I do not know what that is off the top of my head. I will have to contact
Okay.
the CAD to get some clarification on that.
Minimum value,
Minimum value, where is that?
right under disabled
Ten
pros.
down.
I do not remember off the top of my head.
And then unknown suspense vehicles.
I will get clarification
All
on
right,
that.
that'd be good. That's all I had to.
Absolutely. I'll make sure that all the questions that have been
I'd like that.
are part of the weekly update.
Appreciate it.
Well, also the finance too.
Yes, sir.
Anyone else have any questions? It has been moved and seconded to pull and discuss and vote on consent agenda 4E. All those in favor, raise your right hand. It is unanimous, the motion passes. Moving on to consent agenda 4H. Anyone have any questions on it? Or do you want to present how?
Sure, I can give you a high level kind of overview of what it is. So essentially, this is the OSIP.
Give it to Dr. Freeze, smart money says it's him that's now questions.
You're probably right. That's okay. The OSIP is a owner-controlled or owner-consolidated insurance program, and this will just be associated with the two new high schools having to do with the bond of 2023. It's essentially a single insurance plan that's designed to cover all liability for construction of the two new high schools. It's a blanket umbrella policy, if you will, that'll combine the general liability, excess, umbrella liability all into one policy, as opposed to having contractors and subcontractors go out and get their own insurances for each piece of the project, which they could make up, mark up in other areas of their bids. It combines it all in, like I said, under one policy to ultimately reduce costs. We've estimated it to be anywhere from $4.5 to $5.5 million in savings and insurance costs associated with the bond. So our recommendation is to recommend Arthur Gallagher Insurance to manage that for us as we work through this. The good news about that is they are already our property insurer for the district, for every piece of property in the district, and have experience with this type of work. Both contractors, Lee Lewis and Satterfield and Ponticus, also have experience with the OSIP and other projects that they've completed across the state and the region. So with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions. Also have a representative from Arthur Gallagher Insurance here to answer any questions that I might not be able to answer.
My only question is, what, did we only get 2 bids or?
Yes, I believe that's correct. Yes. Yes, this is a very
Is it why we didn't
complex.
get 3 or?
This is a very we've sent out 227 invitations and only received two bidders. Yes.
Well, Arthur Gallagher is a very reputable company. I've never heard of the other one, so. I'm
Yes, sir.
fine with it, so. That was just my question. Why we only had 2?
Any other questions? All right, it's been moved and seconded that we pull, discuss, and vote on consent agenda item 4H. All those in favor in accepting it, raise your right hand. All those against, it is unanimous. Motion passes. So, moving on. We need a motion to vote on this block for consent agenda items 4A, B, C, I, J, K, and L.
I'll second it.
Okay, it has been motioned and seconded that we vote as a block on consent agenda items 4A, approval of board meeting minutes, B, approval of monthly financials, C, approval of donations over $20,000, I, approval of selection of vendors for bond-related landscape services, J, approval of the architectural engineering firm for the Able and San Jacinto Middle School project associated with the 2023 bond and authorization to execute an agreement therewith. Consent agenda item 4K, approval of the Midland Central Appraisal District Board of Directors ballot. And consent agenda items 4L, adoption of board resolution concerning the ratification of sales agreement for certain real property. All those in favor, raise your right hand. It is unanimous, the motion passes. It is now 1:10 PM on December 2nd, and the meeting
I
of
move to adjourn.
Midland ISD for adjournment. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Thank you.
Yeah, you're spot on.
You're doing hard, you I'm still $1 in debt. Gosh,
Failing last year, you know, but after talking to the audition and stuff, did all the testing and stuff. You're all just confirmed. We all got it. Yeah, he's doing that, right?